A.2.14. Why is voluntarism not enough? Voluntarism means that association should be voluntary in order to maximize liberty. Anarchists are obviously voluntarists, thinking that only in free association, created by free agreement, can individuals develop, grow, and express their liberty. However, it is evident that under capitalism, voluntarism is not enough in itself to maximize liberty. Voluntarism implies promising, i.e., the freedom to make agreements, and promising implies that individuals are capable of independent judgment and rational deliberation. In addition, it presupposes that they can evaluate and change their actions and relationships. Contracts under capitalism, however, contradict these implications of voluntarism. For while technically voluntary, though as we show in section B.4, this is not really the case, capitalist contracts result in a denial of liberty. This is because the social relationship of wage labor involves promising to obey in return for payment. And as Carol Pateman points out, open quote, to promise to obey is to deny or to limit, to a greater or lesser degree, individuals' freedom and equality and their ability to exercise these capacities of independent judgment and rational deliberation. To promise to obey is to state that in certain areas, the person making the promise is no longer free to exercise her capacities and decide upon her own actions and is no longer equal, but subordinate, end quote. This results in those obeying no longer making their own decisions. Thus, the rationale for voluntarism, i.e., that individuals are capable of thinking for themselves and must be allowed to express their individuality and make their own decisions, is violated in a hierarchical relationship as some are in charge and the many obey. See also section A.2.8. Thus, any voluntarism which generates relationships of subordination is, by its very nature, incomplete and violates its own justification. This can be seen from capitalist society, in which workers sell their freedom to a boss in order to live. In effect, under capitalism, you are only free to the extent that you can choose whom you will obey. Freedom, however, must mean more than the right to change masters. Voluntary servitude is still servitude. For if, as Rousseau put it, sovereignty, open quote, for the same reason as makes it inalienable, cannot be represented, end quote, neither can it be sold nor temporarily nullified by a hiring contract. Rousseau famously argued that the, open quote, people of England regards itself as free, but it is grossly mistaken. It is free only during the election of members of Parliament. As soon as they are elected, slavery overtakes it, and it is nothing, end quote. Anarchists expand on this analysis. To paraphrase Rousseau, under capitalism, the worker regards herself as free, but she is grossly mistaken. She is free only when she signs her contract with her boss. As soon as it is signed, slavery overtakes her, and she is nothing but an order taker. To see the injustice, we need only quote Rousseau, open quote, that a rich and powerful man having acquired immense possessions in land should impose laws on those who want to establish themselves there, and that he should only allow them to do so on condition that they accept his supreme authority and obey all his wishes, that I can still conceive. Would not this tyrannical act contain a double usurpation, that on the ownership of the land and that on the liberty of the inhabitants, end quote. Hence Proudhon's comment that, open quote, man may be made by property a slave or a despot by turns, end quote. Little wonder we discover Bakunin rejecting, open quote, any contract with another individual on any footing but the utmost equality and reciprocity, as this would alienate his or her freedom, and so would be a relationship of voluntary servitude with another individual, end quote. Anyone making such a contract in a free society, i.e. anarchist society, would be, open quote, devoid of any sense of personal dignity, end quote. Only self-managed associations can create relationships of equality rather than of subordination between its members. Therefore, anarchists stress the need for direct democracy in voluntary associations in order to ensure that the concept of freedom is not a sham and a justification for domination as it is under capitalism. Only self-managed associations can create relationships of equality rather than of subordination between its members. It is for this reason that anarchists have opposed capitalism and urged, open quote, workers to form themselves into democratic societies with equal conditions for all members on pain of a relapse into feudalism, end quote. For similar reasons, anarchists, with the notable exception of Proudhon, opposed marriage as it turned women into, open quote, a bonded slave who takes her master's name, her master's bread, her master's commands, and serves her master's passions, who can control no property, not even her own body, without his consent, end quote. While marriage, due to feminist agitation, in many countries has been reformed towards the anarchist ideal of free union of equals, it still is based on the patriarchal principles anarchists like Goldman and de Clercq identified and condemned. See section 8.3.5 for more on feminism and anarchism. Clearly, voluntary entry is a necessary but not a sufficient condition to defend an individual's liberty. This is to be expected, as it ignores or takes for granted the social conditions in which agreements are made and, moreover, ignores the social relationships created by them. Open quote, for the worker who must sell his labor, it is impossible to remain free, end quote. Any social relationships based on abstract individualism are likely to be based upon force, power, and authority, not liberty. This, of course, assumes a definition of liberty according to which individuals exercise their capacities and decide their own actions. Therefore, voluntarism is not enough to create a society that maximizes liberty. This is why anarchists think that voluntary association must be complemented by self-management, direct democracy within these associations. For anarchists, the assumptions of voluntarism imply self-management, or to use Proudhon's words, open quote, as individualism is the primordial fact of humanity, so association is its complementary term, end quote. To answer the second objection first, in a society based on private property and so statism, those with property have more power which they can use to perpetuate their authority, open quote, wealth is power, poverty is weakness, end quote, in the words of Albert Parsons. This means that under capitalism, the much-praised freedom to choose is extremely limited. It becomes, for the vast majority, the freedom to pick a master. Under slavery, quipped Parsons, the master, open quote, selected his own slaves. Under the wage slavery system, the wage slave selects his master, end quote. Under capitalism, Parsons stressed, open quote, those disinherited of their natural rights must hire out and serve and obey the oppressing class or starve. There is no other alternative. Some things are priceless, chief among which are life and liberty. A free man or woman is not for sale or hire, end quote. And why should we excuse servitude or tolerate those who desire to restrict the liberty of others? The liberty to command is the liberty to enslave, and so is actually a denial of liberty. Regarding the first objection, anarchists plead guilty. We are prejudiced against the reduction of human beings to the status of robots. We are prejudiced in favor of human dignity and freedom. We are prejudiced, in fact, in favor of humanity and individuality. Section 8.2.11 discusses why direct democracy is the necessary social counterpart to voluntarism, i.e. free agreement. Section B.4 discusses why capitalism cannot be based on equal bargaining power between property owners and the propertyless.